any pressure to rein in spending commitments more aggressively given today's result?
Well, we will factor in all of the economic conditions at the time that we put the budgets together. We've done that in our first 7 or so budgets and budget updates, and that will continue to be our approach. We come to the most responsible set of decisions that we can, taking into consideration the prevailing economic conditions that Australians confront at the time. And so this budget will take a similar approach. That's the approach that has delivered two surpluses, $233 billion improvement to the budget, returning most of the upgrades to revenue when our predecessors didn't do that. Those savings, that spending restraint, is all about getting the budget in the best condition that we can to fund our priorities, and also to make sure that we can align our economic strategy with the economic conditions, including the sorts of data that we got today.
Treasurer, what about inflation data is likely to trigger an interest rate rise next week and cause even more pain for households? Is this proof the government's approach to inflation is not working?
Well, first of all, I don't make predictions or preempt decisions taken independently by the Reserve Bank. Of course, they'll weigh up the data that they've received today, and they'll weigh up the other data that's been released since the last time that the board met. There are good reasons why treasurers don't make those kinds of predictions. But more broadly, if the government's spending position was the key determinant of interest rate movements, we've had 3 interest rate cuts last year. And the Reserve Bank Governor has herself said that this is not about wanting a different approach to fiscal policy. The Governor has mentioned our 2 surpluses being helpful. She's mentioned on other occasions the fact that our budget is stronger than many of our peers. And if you look through recent statements from the Reserve Bank, they haven't identified public spending or government policy as a source of these persistent price pressures. Now, we acknowledge that these price pressures are hanging around longer than we'd like, and that today's numbers are higher than we'd like, even though they're much lower than what we inherited. My job is to focus on this inflation challenge, the productivity challenge, and this global uncertainty. Those will be the 3 key influences on the budget that Katie Gallagher and I release in May. But the Reserve Bank has made it clear in recent times that public spending is not the issue.
The cost of living crisis, Treasurer, is there more you can do? The targeted relief, you talked about the energy bill rebates disappearing. Can you maybe reintroduce? What can you say to people who are really struggling at this point?
Yeah. Well, we understand that a lot of Australians are still doing it tough, even though we've made all of this progress in the economy together, for which the Australian people deserve a lot of credit. We know that there's still a lot of pressures on people right now. And that's why we are rolling out cheaper medicines, more bulk billing, student debt relief. It's why we've got 2 more rounds of tax cuts coming as well, because we understand that these cost of living pressures are hanging around. And so we understand that, more than understanding and acknowledging that, we're doing something about it in the most responsible way that we can.
What about the energy rebates, though? Is there something you can do in that space?
Well, we've made it clear that those energy rebates were an important part of our budget, but not a permanent part of our budget. And so they ended at the end of 2025. What you're seeing in the data today, a big part of what you're seeing in the data today, is the timing of these payments combined with the ending of the state rebates at the same time is driving some of the temporary part of this inflation challenge. And again, in case I wasn't clear at the outset, this is a mix of very temporary factors like the end of the energy bill rebates, combined with some more persistent pressures in areas like housing and market services. And what the Reserve Bank has said on other occasions, and I've said on other occasions as well, is it remains to be seen how much is temporary and how much is lingering. But you can see elements of both in today's data. I'll just take a couple more and then I've got to go.
If you don't change your spending, do you think that inflation will still be able to return to where the RBA wants it to be?
Well, we still expect this inflation to return to the target band. You know, we've in our forecasts and in the Reserve Bank's forecasts, it's been clear that we will see inflation moderate over time. What we got in today's data was not especially surprising. I mean, it's difficult and it's unwelcome, but it's not surprising. We expected this because of a combination of those temporary factors and some of those persistent pressures. And so we still expect inflation to moderate over time. That's been clear in our forecasts and in other forecasts for some time.
The latest housing data is showing massive growth yet again for housing in Queensland, possibly 11% the next year, blaming partly the 5% scheme that helped first home buyers. Do you regret that, or was that scheme essential, or do you believe or agree it has put pressure on prices going up?
That's a really important program, which is about making it easier for first home buyers to get a toehold in the market. And it operates alongside a number of very substantial efforts that we're making to build more homes as well, so that there are more affordable options in the market for more people. Unfortunately, when it comes to housing, we're paying the price for a decade of neglect, and we're playing catch up. We've got an ambitious target. We've got very substantial Commonwealth investment. We're working very closely with the states and local governments on planning and zoning. We're trying to make the sector more productive. We're doing a whole range of things at once because we recognise that we haven't made sufficient progress as a country over the last decade or so when it comes to building new homes, and we're doing our best to turn that around. Now, in recent housing data, we've seen some really encouraging news when it comes to approvals and when it comes to commencements, and that's a very good thing. But we know that the housing market is still a source of very considerable cost of living pressure. You see that in today's numbers as well, and that's why dealing with housing, dealing with the cost of living are really high priorities for this government.
Do you disagree that that scheme has pressure on prices?
Well, I mean, as you saw in the news today, I think, I haven't read that whole story that was out there today, but I've seen that kind of story before. The very, very modest difference that the modelling anticipates doesn't take into account the more homes that we're building at the same time. And so you've got to look right across the board when it comes to our housing policy. Primarily, it's about building more homes. It's also about helping first home buyers get a toehold in the market, and both parts of that policy are really important. This might take two more. I'll take yours, and then we're done.
A number of opinion polls published this week have One Nation's support now between 20 to 25%. Are you concerned about this surge?
Oh, look, I've got more important numbers to focus on, like the numbers which have been released today. I mean, I understand that when we're seeing the disintegration of the far right in Australian politics, that's of interest to political junkies and politics watchers and commentators. I understand that. But my focus is really the inflation numbers, the housing data, the numbers in the budget. What we're seeing now in the former coalition, it's really descending into farce when you look at the behaviour of coalition members, including, earlier today. We've got one fella from north of here. He's gone from telling everyone he wants to leave the National Party, and now today he says he wants to lead it. So the National Party, the Liberal Party, the far right of Australian politics is really descending into farce. It's a kind of a bin fire of far right personality politics. And I want to assure the Australian people that even with the disintegration of the coalition, even with their kind of unedifying attempts to just try and be a paler shade of orange, the government's very focused on the cost of living, on housing, on our economic challenges, and we won't be distracted by the bin fire, which is the former coalition.
Treasurer, who will be to blame if the RBA raises the interest rate next week? Does the buck ultimately stop with you and your government?
Well, I've made it clear, I think even in answering your earlier question, I take responsibility for my parts of dealing with the inflation challenge, the productivity challenge, and this global economic uncertainty. The Reserve Bank and the government have got similar objectives and different responsibilities. my responsibility is to roll out this cost of living help in a responsible way, to get the budget in better nick, as we did in the budget update that we released only a few weeks ago, and to focus on where we can make a meaningful difference. And so I take responsibility for doing my job. I understand and cherish the independence of the Reserve Bank. We understand how important that independence is, and that's why I don't make predictions or try and preempt decisions that they will grapple with next week.
Just one last one on another issue. Scott Morrison has urged Muslim leaders to credit preachers and put their religious teachings into English to help combat terrorism in mosques and schools. Is there a response from you?
Oh, look, I haven't seen those comments from Scott Morrison.
Good idea,
Look, we've got our own suite of measures that we legislated through the Parliament, and those measures are all about trying to unify the country, not divide the country. I think typically Scott Morrison has a very different objective. He's a pretty divisive figure, and the government's got its own approach to this. And the government's approach has been to crack down on anti-Semitism, to crack down on hate speech, to strengthen our gun laws, and to try and rebuild social cohesion in our country. That's the government's approach to this. That's reflected in the legislation that passed the Parliament last week. There will be all kinds of other ideas from former Prime Ministers and others, but the government is confident that we've got the right suite of measures coming. Thanks very much.